Well, good evening, everyone, and I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. So my name is Marshall Shore, and I will be your host. We have some special guests on tonight from talking about preservation and history of cemeteries, and we'll go into that in just a little bit to tell you a little bit about why this is even happening. So I do a wide variety of things to try and make history fun and accessible. And, you know, we're all now sitting at home doing a wide variety of things. And I was missing conversation and getting to talk to folks and just sharing and hearing stories. So I thought, well, you know, why don't we just go online and do that exact same thing? And so that's what we're doing. So I want to welcome you all to, this is our second edition of Arizona History Happy Hour. And so my name is Marshall Shore. I am also known as the Hip Historian. Now you might wonder, how does one get a name like the Hip Historian? Well, you know, about 20 years ago, I was working in a library in Brooklyn. And you know what? It was winter, it was cold, and I had had enough snow. And so it was ready for a change. So we loaded up everything we owned into a big orange cube, a U-Haul, and decided it was time to have some fun. And so we chose to move to Arizona. So how long have you been in Arizona? I've been here 20 years. I bet some of you have been here longer. Some of you probably been here less. But let us know. You can chat off to the side. So promptly moved into a 1956 ranch. Now, when we got here, it was beige on beige, and I think those shutters were even another tone of beige. And so I'm happy to say now it is a lovely two-tone of seafoam and cantaloupe. Pretty much the reason why we got the house is it's a time capsule. It's a 1956 ranch, and that's how my kitchen looks today, with all that buttercream yellow tile, the matching stovetop, and that window or the oven that is missing a window. So you've got to be very careful when you're baking a cake that it doesn't fall. Now, as soon as I got here to Arizona, all I heard, there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true because every time I went on an adventure, I came face to face with so many amazing stories. And then there's that post-war boom that I think in a lot of ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on their way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers, and in some cases looking for a home just like mine. And then there's this man, Dr. Carrier, the inventor of air conditioning. And you know, without him, most of us wouldn't be here nearly as long as we are. So let's give him a round of applause. As well as the Phoenix New Times has named me Best Historian several years in a row, as well as Phoenix Magazine named me the best bespectacled Phoenix celebrity because I do indeed like my eyewear. Now you might wonder, what is Marshall wearing? Because I kind of have my own idea of what I think looks good. Well, not that you can really see, but we'll talk about what I indeed do have on. And yes, I do have on pants, in case you're wondering. So, you know, every year, February 14th, we have a huge celebration of ourselves right here in Arizona. And back in 2012, we had a whiz bang of a celebration because it was 100 years of statehood. And someone gave me 15 minutes, February 14th of 2012, to talk about anything I wanted to on the lawn, actually a stage set up on the lawn of the Capitol. And so they said I could talk about anything I wanted to. And I chose to talk about one of my most favorite events that a lot of people don't know much about. It was started back in 1926 by Charlotte Hall. And it was first held at the Elder Shriners Temple, which still stands over on 15th Avenue in Washington. It then became the Mining and Mill Museum. But you know what? That quirky little museum got kicked out. But I'm happy to say that they're going to be moving back into that space under the auspices of University of Arizona. So very excited to have that little museum coming back to downtown. It'll take them a while to bring the building back to the code, but they indeed will be back. Now, after that, it got a little too big, and it then moved to Montgomery Stadium. Now, Montgomery Stadium was our very first stadium here in Arizona, and it was home to our very first bowl game. And I sure wish somebody would bring it back, because that's a bowl game I could really sink my teeth into. It was called the Salad Bowl. And what would you expect from the Salad Bowl? Why, none other than the queen of the Salad Bowl, riding in her very own salad bowl with her spoon and fork to serve with. It was called Mask of the Yellow Moon. It was based on a Pima legend about how the god of sun would give his rays to make the earth golden and warm and make things grow. So it was always held in the springtime. Now, it was quite an event. In fact, it was kind of like a Super Bowl halftime spectacular before there even was such a thing. At its height, it had about 5,000 high school and college students performing in it. You had pretty much every high school in town involved with it. You had the debate club doing skits, like in this photo right here. You had multiple marching bands, because all the folks involved, as well as really large sets. Now, I do have a story from a guy that after the show, him and his friends would go steal a little bit of that set, drag it back to his carriage house, and they would put on plays throughout the rest of the year in front of that bit of cabbage set. It was also known for a lot of young ladies in costume that were designed by students and made by home ec. And I was lucky enough to find a few dresses in a box. And I was allowed to borrow those for 24 hours, so I was able to convince 3 friends to put on those dresses. And what we're looking at here are dresses from the late 30s. And so we had those on stage, and I got to join them. Now, you might have guessed that I'm not a very good wallflower, so I needed something that would stand up to those amazing dresses. So I talked to my friend Glenn. Now, Glenn was just indoctrinated into the Arizona Sign Association Hall of Fame. He rolled in town in the early 50s as a sign designer and did such signs as My Florist, which a lot of you may know that sign over at 7th Avenue McDowell, still standing. And he painted a suit coat that as an homage to the Arizona state flag. And I think he did a heck of a good job. Now, I also have other suit coats, so maybe in future episodes, there might even be a costume change. Who knows? Now, one reason I always like to tell this story is because you never know where the next bit of story is coming from. And so I was doing a presentation for a group called Arizona's First Family. And when I was done, this woman came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, I got something I want to show you. We went out to her car, and she pulled this dress out. This was her mother's dress that she wore in The Mask of the Yellow Moon, and she also had the programs with it. This was from 1928 or 29. I wasn't able to, because at that point the librarian kicked in. I didn't have gloves on, so I wasn't about to touch those little fragile pieces of paper to see exactly which number and even what year this dress was worn in. But I love the fact that that was just kind of hanging around, and I had a chance to see it. Now, this is indeed called Arizona's History Happy Hour, so that means there's got to be a cocktail involved. So let's see. All right. Oh, and that camera went off. Well, that's not good. All right. So let's see. Let me see if I can get Oh, dang, that's good. Num, 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 num. So, all right. Oh, and indeed, so there is indeed the recipe for the Corpse Reviver 2. So some of you may have, so I did post this earlier. We'll be doing the same thing next week, getting the recipe out as soon as we can. And I'll talk more about what next week's show is going to look like. But, you know, we have to move on. So through the miracle of modern technology, you know, I am able to bring to you something really exciting. So I've been involved with the Pioneer and Military Memorial Park Cemetery for quite some time. And so as I started doing this, it was like one of the first folks I reached out to were my friends that do a lot of work with the Pioneer Cemetery. So let's bring them on. So first we have Miss Cindy coming on. Hey, Cindy.
Hello. Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here. And then we have Deb. Hi, Deb.
Hello. Hello, hello.
All right. And then we have Patty.
Hi.
Hello. All right. So tell us, so what is the Pioneer Cemetery?
Dead silence.
I know.
Well, because they're all dead there. That's why, yeah.
I know.
So, I mean, well, just give us kind of a brief run through. So how long has it been there?
We're all dead.
Cemetery Association's been actually in existence since 1938.
Right.
That's when it was initially formed. And then we had a break for World War II. And then it came back about 1983.
All right. So, you know, I think a good way to talk about the cemetery is our next thing. And let's see. All right. So we have some trivia coming up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now you at home, grab a pen and paper, and you can keep track of this. I know last week we had people who were posting their answers. You can do that. You can post your answers. You can keep track of them yourself. You can do whatever you would like. So our first question, and then what we'll do is we'll go through all 10 questions, and then we'll go through those answers and talk about why is that the correct answer. All right, so our first question is, what is the accepted safe way to clean a grave marker? A, Comet and a toothbrush. B, bleach or ammonia and a metal pot scrubber. C, water and a soft brush. Or D, Windex and a sponge. What do you think the correct answer is? Because we're going to be moving on to question number 2. All right. Now they do, I think, get a little more difficult because this requires a little bit of knowledge. But, you know, the fun thing of this is that's why we're going to go through and explain the answer. All right. What structure is built over the original Phoenix Cemetery? I'm going to read that question again. What structure is built over the original Phoenix Cemetery? A, a ballpark. B, the San Carlos Hotel. C, Wells Fargo's bank. Or D, the Sheriff Department. So go ahead and write your answer down for what you think it is. All right, and number 3. When was the last person buried in the Pioneer Memorial Park? Was it A, 1894, B, 1914, C, 2013, or is it D, 2020?
Oh my.
I know. It's not the right answers. Who knows?
I think I missed that one.
All right, question 4. Pioneer and Military Memorial Park Cemetery has a prominent madam named A, is it Big Nose Kate? B, Rose Gregory? C, Madame Askew? Or D, Minnie Powers? Now, I know someone's saying this is hard for somebody who's not from here, but you know, that's why we're going to go through and explain the answers.
Learn these things, yeah.
So exactly, because we're all in this to learn and have a good time. Speaking of that, I think it's time for another sip of my Corpse Reviver.
Oh, yeah. Cheers.
Indeed. Cheers. All right. Number 5. The most famous person buried at the Pioneer Memorial Park is John Behan, B, Jack Swilling, C, Jacob Waltz, or D, Tom Mix. Who is the most famous person buried at the cemetery? All right, question 6. Who was buried in the Pioneer Cemetery and exhumed in 1925 and moved to a pyramid tomb near Florence, Arizona? Was it Governor George Hunt? B, Charles Poston? C, Frank Luke Jr.? Or D, Ed Tovray? So which of those folks were buried in the Pioneer Cemetery, pulled out, and then moved over to Florence, where they're now hanging out in their own little pyramid?
There you go.
All right. And Kari, don't you be giving away, or at least nixing an answer. She says, oh, wasn't Big Nose Kate in Tombstone?
Shh.
Shh.
Okay, you can cheat.
All right.
Helping. It's helping.
All
Big
right.
Nose Kate was a lot of places.
I know.
All right. Indeed, she was.
Mhm.
Sticking her nose in a lot of business. All right. So that's there. All right. So question 7. Symbolism. When you see Spock hands on a grave marker, what does it mean? A, beam me up. Oh, Kari's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, no worries. All right. So what do the Spock hands mean? A, beam me up. See, and there's Cindy doing the Spock hands. So in case you're wondering. B, live long and prosper. C, Cohen hands. Or D, peace out. Which do you think that hand symbol means on a gravestone? All right, so question 8. We're in the home stretch now. We're almost finished.
Woo-hoo.
So if a cemetery allows grave marker rubbings, what is the safest method and approved method? Is it A, carve off paper with a tennis ball? B, shaving cream? C, you rub dirt on it? Or D, paper with markers, pencil, or candle wax? Which do you think would be the best way to try and get a rubbing from a headstone? All right, we're going on to almost the very last one. All right, and this is another symbolism question. Why do people leave coins on a grave marker? A, to help pay for the grave marker. B, offset lawn maintenance. C, pay homage to that person. Or D, bus fare. Wow, because they're going somewhere. Interesting option. All right. And so for the last question, this is a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
What British aristocrat is credited with giving Phoenix its name? A, Queen Victoria. Oh, I should also mention that the person is also buried in the Pioneer Cemetery as well. So not just named Phoenix, but also buried in the cemetery. Was it A, Queen Victoria, B, Brian Darrell Dupa, C, Harry of Sussex, or D, Lord Byron? All right. So take a few moments, and because we're getting ready to go through the answers. I know. You know, I'm afraid. So I'm so worried about having music because if they catch you with unauthorized music, they just yank everything out. So there's no audio. So that's why I have no music. So I'm trying to get somebody to actually write me a little theme song. Because who doesn't want their own theme song?
We just have to sing.
No,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
that's dangerous because nobody wants to hear me sing. And actually, my friend Steele from Indiana is on, and we actually did go to karaoke, and it was horrendous.
We have Muppets, so
Yeah, we have puppets.
yeah.
Oh, cool. And so my friend Brian, who actually is out of Boston, just said I can use some of his music. Oh my gosh.
Cool.
Yeah.
There you
Sweet. Thank you, Brian. I'll be hitting you up for something.
go. Mhm.
All right. So let's go and answer some questions. All right. So what is the accepted safe way to clean a grave marker?
Water and a soft brush.
All you need.
Because
Nice.
stones do live. And if you put harsh chemicals on them, it'll adhere in and break down the stone or make some things like marble. It'll make it sugar, and then you're destroying the stone.
Oh,
So you want to be very easy. And no high pressure water, just a little sprayer. Just,
oops. There we go. It's like, oh, there's something we don't know what it is. Okay. So what structure is built over the original Phoenix Cemetery? So you should explain. So where is the original Phoenix Cemetery?
The original was where you got off at the train station depot. So that's like Madison and Fifth.
Fifth.
And
Fifth.
yeah, so in 1912, they were doing a construction site to find this, to build this, and they found remains. So the site had to be stopped till they exhumed all that what was left over. There wasn't, how do I put this? There was just enough to put in like little shoe boxes because the original was probably
1884.
84 or before, because that's when they started. So there wasn't much left. And then we were to have them all re-exhumed cemetery. And that was June 2013.
Wow. All right. So, and when was the last person buried at the Pioneer Cemetery? Well, it was actually 2013. Because it was some of those bodies that were found when they were looking for that building. And
We
so
had an empty spot that they had been moved to Greenwood, so we took over that spot and put them all together.
Okay.
Bodies traveled a lot back then. They went from the original to us to Greenwood to here and there. They went all over.
Wow. All right. So the Pioneer Cemetery has what prominent madam? And the answer is actually, it's kind of a trick question because Rose Gregory, who was also known as Minnie Powers.
She's near and dear to Cindy. She likes to portray him or her during when we have reenactments.
So she was born in 1952 in England, and then she ran a saloon bar, had a lot of working women. You didn't have much choice when you were single. You worked in stores or you worked in a brothel. She died in 1898. And she was tragically murdered by her boyfriend. But when she died, she gave so much to the community as far as money, food, shelter, clothing. She didn't have a lot or anything for her own burial. So the town did go together and get her a very nice coffin with a silver plaque that said "At Rest" on top of it. And they actually did the burial for her.
Wow. All right. So on to question 5. And how's everybody out there doing with your quiz? All right.
Yeah,
So
who got any right so far?
all right. So number 5. The most famous person buried at the Pioneer Cemetery is who? Jacob Waltz. Now,
Lost Dutchman.
exactly, the Lost Dutchman, which is probably one of the most retold legend about. Oh, wow. We have folks out there that only have missed one so far.
Really?
Yeah.
Have
wow.
they gone on our tours or anything?
And of
Maybe,
course,
maybe.
Kari is like getting all of them. So,
Good.
oh, and Blair is on. Very cool. So, yeah, so Jacob Waltz, the Lost Dutchman, is actually buried at the Pioneer Cemetery.
He's buried way in the back of the cemetery. So when they come out to visit, when it's 120 degrees, we all have to draw straws. Who's going to be the one that walks way back there in the heat?
Indeed. All right. So who was buried in the cemetery, dug up in 1925, and moved to a pyramid tomb near Florence? Now, even though Governor Hunt is indeed buried in a pyramid, it is not anywhere near Florence.
Mm-mm.
No, it's actually in Papago Park.
Right.
So, B. Charles Poston.
So he was buried at our cemetery and exhumed in 1925 so that he could be reinterred. And it was his like religious group or faith is what the pyramid was all about.
Worshipping the sun, wasn't it? A sun worshiping
Yeah,
time?
it was a sun worshiping. Yes.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
that's what yeah.
All right. So number 7, Cohen.
Oh, but another good thing I was looking about him too.
Well, let's go back.
Yeah, he was known as Arizona because he lobbied in Washington to create the Arizona Territory. And in 1863, he was a congressman and a superintendent of Indian Affairs.
Wow.
So he was quite well known. And he died 1902.
All right. So the Spock Hands.
So did anybody get this one? Or are you guys Googling the answers?
Probably.
I don't care. You know, research is research.
I didn't even think of Googling. I wonder what happens if you Google Spock Hands and Cemetery.
It does come up.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, it is a Jewish symbol that signifies that the family or the tribe is from a deceased tribe of Cohen. And interesting, when they have funerals in the Jewish faith of the Cohen family, that they only can go to the funerals of their family or nearest relative. They can't just go to anybody's, funeral. And another thing that made it interesting is Leonard Nimoy, that's kind of how he got this idea, is the Spock fingers. He is Jewish, and he thought he's the one that thought of using this gesture on Star Trek.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who
Just
knew
trivia.
You
You love trivia too.
Indeed, I do. That's what we're all here for, is to learn something.
So that's where it came from, Spock.
Very cool. All right. So number 7. If a cemetery allows grave marker rubbings, what is the safest and approved method? Blue carb off paper, not carb-on paper, but carb off. With a tennis ball.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real easy to use. You just use like painter's tape because you don't want to ever do anything to the marker ever. Like people use wax and that will go through like the rice paper or some of the real thin paper.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it'll deposit.
People do crayons.
Yeah, and it'll deposit on there and the wax, and then you can see like this really dark, ugly smear leftover names.
Yeah. Looks bad.
Yeah. So this has been okayed by the National Center for Preservation Training. I'm sorry, Technology and Training. So that's where we get a lot of our guidelines.
Okay. Now, weren't you guys? You were supposed to have a conference this summer, weren't you?
Yes, but because of the
Just got
virus, we
canceled.
didn't get to go because we also are co-leaders of the Arizona chapter for the Association for Gravestone Studies. So we do, yeah.
We were going to road
know.
trip to Austin, canceled.
I know. But
Darn.
that's okay. I know, darn.
All right.
Yep.
So question 9. So why do people leave coins on a grave marker?
Who's got this one? All of you guys? There's a 2-part to it. There's one that it's an ancient Greek thing to pay the ferry for your trip in the other world. But mainly when you see stones and coins, it's to let people know that you were there visiting, and it's to show respect and remembrance. But as you see on this one, it's a military stone, and it means more that it's from the Roman Empire, and a quarter means that the person was present when the deceased lost their life. A dime symbolizes that they served with the person. A nickel means you trained with the person. And then the true answer for all this is almost all of them, because at a memorial cemetery, they will gather them at the end of Memorial Day, and it helps pay for the grave markers, the lawn, not bus fare, but to help with any indigent veterans that need help. So they do put the money to you.
Wow.
So they pay forward.
That's pretty darn cool. I didn't realize all the coins had different meanings.
Yeah, it's like your ranking. But a lot of people just use whatever. A stone, if you find a stone, if you have something, and those coins. The other is grave goods, and that's when they bring something, like you'll see a teddy bear or wind chimes or something, an airplane. Those are called grave goods.
All right. So on to what British aristocrat is credited with giving Phoenix its name and is also buried at the Pioneer Cemetery? Why, it's Lord Darrell Dupa. And there he is. So what do we know about Mr. Dupa?
Well, he was the youngest of 14 brothers and sisters born in England. And he did attend Cambridge University in England. Family was quite wealthy, but he was never a lord, as some people have named him that. Being the youngest, he really didn't have much chance of inheriting much because he had an older brother. So he took off to the Americas, and when he heard about Arizona and the gold that was discovered here, he came here and he settled in Prescott in about 1862. And then he traveled down to the valley because Jack Swilling, who's well known for getting the canal started here in the Salt River Valley, he and Jack Swilling teamed up. And during lunch drinking one day, they decided how they were going to name Phoenix. And the name that was picked originally, I don't recall right now, but Darrell Dupa didn't like that. And being someone who was educated, he decided Phoenix rising from the ashes was the appropriate name. So that's how Phoenix was named.
Oh, because when they got here, they had found the canals.
Yes.
And so that's why there had been someone else here before them. Oh,
Right.
wow.
And he's a man in our cemetery that actually was buried twice in the cemetery.
Yeah, he was removed in 1921 and taken to Greenwood by the Daughters of the American Revolution. And then when our Pioneer Cemetery Association became more active in 1991, he was brought back to the cemetery and put back where he initially was buried. in much pomp and circumstances. You can see in the one picture, they actually used the horseless carriage that's over at Greenwood to do that.
I was wondering if that was the carriage they have at Greenwood.
Yes.
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 Wow,
Yes.
I didn't realize that thing was ever on the road.
Yes, and it's still there.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
exactly. It's over in one of the
It's in the very back.
yeah,
Yeah.
in one of the mausoleums.
Yeah.
Wow, they never talk about that.
Mhm.
No.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful.
So I love reading the comments on how people missed a few, but they learned a lot. So that was the whole purpose of this, was to go through a little bit and have some fun and learn some things.
So who knew who Madame Askew is? Were very many? Can you tell, Marshall?
I can't, but I bet only a select few. I mean, I see Carol Lee on here. She might have gotten that answer.
Right.
So,
Madame Askew helped with one of our fundraisers at the cemetery. It was Hats and High Tea in the cemetery, and she was our guest speaker, and she told about the Victorian history and tradition of tea drinking. So she is very much alive, and she's awesome.
indeed. I know. I love that Kari was on last week talking about Madame Askew, and then this week talking about Madame Askew.
Yeah.
So I guess I need to find out if Madame Askew will be a guest.
She should. She's
Oh, that
awesome.
would be good.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that would be a lot of fun.
And if anybody's interested in helping with preservation, you can get a hold of Marshall, and then he'll forward your name. But hopefully, if everything goes well and everybody stays well and healthy, in October, we'll have a train and start working on stones again. We've done over 100 repairs, so we really need volunteers to actually work on the stones. And we recently we got a grant from the Arizona Humanities, so we're going to be working on a lot of women and children's headstones, grave markers. So anybody interested, please get a hold of Marshall.
And
Very, very gratifying when you complete stones. It's really fun.
well, I love the fact that I keep running into you guys. I mean, it's like I'll be over at Greenwood doing something, and all of a sudden it's like, and I see all
There we
these
are.
people I know, and there they are fixing headstones out in Greenwood, not just Pioneer Cemetery.
No, we
Wow.
have a conservator that comes down every February, and he helps. So then he goes to different cemeteries.
Yeah,
Hey,
no,
Mark.
Joseph Farinini from Gravestone from Gravestone Matters.
Hey, Marshall.
yes.
I noticed that somebody asked if the Dupa Villa housing over around 20th Street and Van Buren was named after Lord Dupa, or I should say Brian Darrow Dupa. I almost made that mistake too, and that is correct. That development in there was named after him.
Very cool.
So,
I know
we
the
know
reason
that.
I like it more just because that's how people started using that, and so
The name, yeah.
all right. So, would ladies like to say anything else?
No, just thank you very much for joining.
Oh my God! Thank you guys so much for being here. It's so nice to see your faces and
Nice
hear
to see
your
yours.
voice again. So, look
And
forward
do
to
what they do. Yeah, do what they do in the cemetery. Do social distancing.
exactly.
Cheers. That was Patty's. That's Patty's line. She should have got it in
We're
there.
6 feet away from all of them when we're in the
Uh-huh.
cemetery, so we're good.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Oh, and then Joe brought up that so also Greenwood does have the Jewish cemetery as well, off onto
Yes.
the
Yes.
side. So
It's
yeah,
way in the back, yes. And
Yeah.
off to the side. There's 2 areas.
right.
That was one of the first original cemeteries in Greenwood too.
Oh, I didn't realize it was one of the original.
Forest Lawn and that back in there.
Okay, yeah, because I know Greenwood is kind of like the Pioneer Cemetery, where it's like there's all these cemeteries that kind of kept getting swallowed up by Greenwood.
Yes, that property was donated to them.
Okay.
Well, people wanted the last Victorian tree, beautiful park for their deceased. So that's why a lot of them were exhumed and brought over to Greenwood.
Okay.
instead of the dirt and cactus.
Okay. They wanted a little prettier surrounding.
Right. They wanted the Victorian park look.
Well, because that also probably dates back to when people actually used to go visit cemeteries quite often.
Right. And used to have picnics, and that was a way they could get away and gather and tell stories and have people's memory live on.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
we
look at
try
the
to do
various-
that. Yeah.
The various artwork, yeah.
Yeah. The architecture, the epitaphs, the symbolism, the stone carvers. It's a whole science.
Indeed. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Marshall, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take you guys off screen.
Bye.
All right. So wasn't that fun? I love doing that because it's such a great way to learn some new things. So, all right. Oh, and I need to click over here. All right. So because we were talking about the cemetery, and I have kind of this whole little formula of how things should go. So one of the segments is Arizona music. And I'm happy to say that in 2 weeks, we actually have Johnny D coming on as a guest. And he is kind of, I would say, one of the most knowledgeable folks about Arizona music. So really looking forward to having him on as a guest. And so I want to talk a little bit about someone who also has a connection to Arizona cemeteries. And it would be Eva Dugan. So Eva Dugan was, oh gosh, she had a lot of careers. One was as a cabaret singer, and she wound up getting hired in southern Arizona by a chicken rancher as his housekeeper. But, you know, she didn't last very long in that role. She was fired, but he quickly went missing. And no one could find him. And so she kept saying that he was off in California. And they couldn't prove anything different because they couldn't find anything that let them know that her boss had befallen some sort of nefarious deed. Well, even though she took his car and drove around on it for a while, and actually even wound up selling it to make some money. And so about 9 months after he disappeared, there was a young man who set up camp near the ranch. And during a rainstorm, he poked his head out and noticed that there was part of a skull popping up out of the ground. And they exhumed the body at that point, and all they really found were the teeth, but that was enough to identify the body. And so Eva did go to trial, was found guilty, and was actually the first woman to be hung in Arizona, and the last. Now, with that, something went a little bit awry, and so she actually got a little separated from the rest of herself. And so she was then buried. Now, because she was a resourceful woman, she had been giving interviews, crocheting doilies, raising all kinds of funds, so that when she was buried, she actually was buried not in just a pine box, but was able to get a really nice casket. Now, you might be wondering, why is this story even connected at all to Arizona music? Well, you know, there was Columbia Records back in 1930. There was a record produced called The Hanging of Eva Dugan, which was a man named Al Craver, singing a song about her. And so his real name was Vernon Dalhart. He was a singer. He actually played a very small role in Girl of the Golden West, which is a Puccini opera about the Southwest. And so he actually went on the road show with that. And there is a very elusive record that he produced, that he sang and recorded. And so it's like, I've got a bunch of friends looking for it. So hopefully somebody out there may have a copy of this. Who knows? But it's called The Hanging of Eva Dugan, Al Craver, from 1930 on a Columbia label. So that's our little dive into some Arizona music. So now our next segment is called See Amazing Little Arizona. Because, you know, Arizona is made up of so many small towns. It's much more than just Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff. And so we get to talk about a wide variety of places. And that's part of why I wanted to include this, just because it's like, there's so many fun places. And so this week we are talking about Cameron, Arizona. So now Cameron, Arizona is about 900 people. So not a big town at all. It's actually up on the Navajo Res, just above the Little Colorado River Gorge. Now, you can't mostly see it in this image, but it's right at the crossroads of US 89 and State Route 64. It's also very near the Desert View entrance to the Grand Canyon. But what I love is because it's so close to the Little Colorado River Gorge, it's easy to get away from the Grand Canyon and have a spectacular view that you have all to yourself, because not only a lot of people go and visit. So this is actually a marker that is on the old Tanner Bridge, which it used to be called Tanner, the town, and then it was renamed for Cameron, who actually was involved in territorial politics and tried to very much monetize the Grand Canyon. He actually had a little hotel, and he had a toll road, actually not a toll road, but a toll trail. We had to pay to use his trail. And so this is on the Tanner Bridge, which is still standing, but it was decommissioned and is now chained off. And that happened in the late 50s. Now you also have the Grand Canyon Motel, or when it was originally opened up, it was the hotel back in the late 20s. And it is still an operating hotel that you can go and experience. Now they also are home to the Cameron Trading Post. Now it's first known as the Little Colorado Trading Post, and it was established back in 1913. So really, just as Arizona becomes a state, this is created, and you can still go there and shop. And because on the reservation, you get some of the best jewelry that is made by the community and other things, rugs and things like that. So I love the fact that you've got this little town just outside of the Grand Canyon that you can go visit and get a chance to experience Arizona in a whole different way than the most visited site, which is the Grand Canyon. And here is a little bit of just kind of what you can expect to see if you go to the Little Colorado River Tribal Park. I mean, and the fact that with this photo, you don't see anybody else in the image. So you're here all by yourself, as opposed to trying to wait for someone to move out of your way or anything to get that one particular view. All right, so now we're gonna try something. Now, don't worry that my bar also looks like, well, that's not right. Let's see. Oh. All right. So indeed, this does look like my bar as well, which it is. But I want to talk a little bit about so this magazine is called Progressive Arizona and the Great Southwest. It was a magazine pretty much kind of published from the mid-20s to about the mid-30s. And it kind of covered a lot of the Southwest. But so I have a few issues of this that came to me in an interesting way, that I got a random email from a woman who said, you know, I was cleaning out an attic of a woman who had actually worked for this magazine. So she found an entire run of this magazine. And so she said, you know, let's meet and you can take a look at these and you can have some duplicates. So I was able to pull out a few of the duplicates about what exactly. I mean, yeah, I mean, the artwork on all the issues I have are amazing. So I decided to pull this one out. And what I love is that the artwork for this particular issue is courtesy of Shell Oil. Back when there used to be all this art for the Southwest, that you really had some of the amazing artists doing things for like some of the travel posters, some of the, even like the logo for this episode, that was a travel poster. So you had so many airlines doing travel posters, trains doing travel posters. And so the art for this was by Morris Logan. And one of the beautiful things is, I mean, just look at those ads. I mean, you've got the whole, I mean, you've got trains, you've got Bisbee Chamber of Commerce in there talking about why you should go visit, as well as look at all those revolutionary new Chryslers you could buy. I sure would love to go and get one of those right now, because that would be really cool. But I love the fact that it's like, as you flip through this, Cactus brand ham, Cactus brand boiled ham, Cactus brand baked ham, and Cactus brand bacon by the Arizona Packing Company, based right out of here in Phoenix. So it did indeed cover the Southwest, but a lot of it was right here in Phoenix, as well as Tucson. But then they also have like articles talking about Springerville, the center of hunters, fishermen's, and campers' paradise. And this particular issue is from September of 1929. So just before the Depression really hit. I mean, and still, I mean, probably the second most visited site in all of Arizona, Tombstone, reverts to its former activity. So these are a lot of fun to just kind of flip through. And so that was part of why I wanted to do kind of this idea of, oh my gosh. And then for Safeway and pay and take it stores, Northern Arizona, look at that woodcut ad. You will find Safeway pay and take it stores conveniently located. Whoops. Here, let me go back that way. There you go. So actually you can see it. All right. So yeah, so hopefully each week we'll get a chance to kind of explore. And now nobody wants to see my dirty old bar, so we're going to get rid of that. So yeah. Oh. And let me bring that back. All right. So now as we come to the end of this episode, I always want to know if there are questions out there. If you have stories, please reach out to me and let me know. Also, if you have images that you'd like to share or comments about things you would like to hear about, or maybe you've got a really cool story that you're just hoping to share with somebody, I'm happy to spend some time with you and capture that story and to incorporate it and share it around with other folks as well. So I also work with a project called the Arizona LGBT History Project, and that is a collaboration with Phoenix Pride and ASU Libraries. And they're doing a really cool thing. They actually did one of them today. They're doing a show and tell family photos, where you can go online and you can start sharing photos of your family. The next one they have coming up is April 28th. And so it's for an hour. And again, it's a Zoom thing, so anyone can log on and enjoy it. If you'd like to know how to be a part of that, I am happy to share that information. I am also part of the Arizona Vintage Sign Coalition, because signage is one of my passions that I really like sharing and talking about. So for as we get into this, we will have a chance to actually talk to some of those folks involved with some of that neon preservation or science preservation across the state, whether it be Casa Grande and their fairly new neon park, or maybe some from Tucson, where they're doing an amazing job of preserving neon. So there's all kinds of really cool things. And so I'm also part of the Arizona Apparel Foundation. I'm actually on the nonprofit board, and they are out in Tempe, and they have shifted focus and are really doing a lot with their creating PPE gowns for all the hospitals around town. They started working with Banner and a couple other hospitals. And so they are setting up shops so that gowns can be produced for hospitals. So I'm hoping to get out there probably maybe before next week, so I can talk a little bit about that. But that's been a really interesting process to be involved with as they start taking on that role of helping the community in that way. So if you'd like to reach out, you can reach me at hellohiphistorian.com. You can also like me on Facebook and follow me on Marshall Shore Hip Historian. If you like this episode and would like to see more, you can always Venmo me a little capital to keep this going, and that's at Marshall Shore for Venmo. And you know, I'm excited because I decided to do this weekly because there's so much out there we can talk about. And you know, I am so excited that next week we're going to talk about the Orpheum Theater. So I will see you here at the same bat time, the same bat channel, as we get a chance to talk about some Arizona history and have some fun and learn some things. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in this evening, and I hope you have a great rest of your night, and I will see you right here next week. Thank you all so much, and good night.